Hey guys, Sean here. I'm back with another outdoor tutorial. Today I'm going to be going through how to carve a very simple little basswood bird. This guy's nice and fat, so it'll give you a chance to practice carving little round things, which is my kind of modern caricature style. So I've prepared up my basswood blank already. Down in the description there's a free pattern for this carving. So go download that, print it out and follow along with this yourself. Firstly, let's talk blanks and patterns. I've taken the pattern that I put in the description below and I've turned it into a little paper template which I've laid onto the side here and cut it to fit. So I've only done that for the side dimensions because I find it's easier with the saws that I have. It's easier to just do one side when you don't have a very good scroll saw, and then you can just work away to meet the two faces. So here are the tools that I'm going to be using today. A 1.5 inch detail knife, this one's a Hock, made the handle myself, it's really nice. A file number 12 7mm V-tool, a flex cut number 5, I think this is a 15mm, flex cut slip strop to stop my tools when they get dull, friction guard tape to keep my fingers safe, and a pencil to mark my lines in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to work down to these lines that we marked on the front to get the width right. So what I like to do is I like to mark the widest part to make sure that I don't come through it. So we're just putting a pencil line down the middle on both sides. So this line won't get removed, and that'll be the middle of our spherical body because he's a fat little boy. Quickest way to do this is to come in to the narrowest point of the body with a V-tool. See how we've notched that out, so it's just down to the pencil line, and then we're going to remove the material from there. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side now. Good, so now we've got two notches out of our face, so I'm going to take the width of the head off and then we're going to round that. So I'm just going to do this with my knife, so we're just going to come clean through and then we're going to run down into this crack. With a knife like this you can actually come across the grain and take big chunks off like that. And remember, you're working down to this rounded head, so you don't need to be taking it off square. Alright, so now that head's pretty roughed out on the front face, so we're going to move on to the body. Same thing, we're just working away to these pencil marks that we've put in. The other thing that I've done is I've put in this shape on the bottom, which is going to help guide me down to the base of the piece. Alright, there we go, front face. So you could do this all in the scroll saw, but I think it's good to show how to do it for those who don't have it. You can also do the side face completely out of the block. It's a bit of a pig, but you can do it. Doesn't have to be super accurate at this stage because we're going to be rounding it out and making a lot of adjustments from here. Now that you have it down to its maximum width on its front and side face, take your pencil and mark in center lines along the middle of the curves that you're going to be putting in. This will give you the high points for the spheres. It's going to be a fat little birdie, so you want to make sure you're defining where those spheres are going to be. So a helpful guide to rounding this bird out is by putting this circle on the base. This will help us knock those corners down and bring them down to a circular shape. This will also help you visualize the curve that needs to come along this line. Basically, we're just trying to get an even transition of curves down through the piece. I'm going to start by removing this edge and then bringing it down to meet this curve. And then we're also going to do the same going into the chin area. Do a little stop cut in there. Make sure when you're getting close to the beak, leave the entire beak because we're going to be doing V cuts into there. So I'm just doing flat cuts along here to get the right radius. Just as easy as that, that's how you get one face done. Going to do the same on the other side. Aiming down towards here, starting in the center. Flipping that piece over and doing some stop cuts into the chin. And I'm making sure to look along the radius. So as I've discussed in other videos, make sure you get that symmetry and make sure you get those proportions right. You can always make it smaller. In fact, that's kind of the entire motto of wood carving. You can always make it smaller. So that's the front of the belly. We're going to come in and do the wings later, so don't worry about them right now. Now we're going to do the back of the bird, coming into that tail. So we've marked the tail onto the base, which is going to help us work down to it. We're going to scoop through here and curve it up to the neck. Start straight away, just doing big cuts, watching out for my fingers, and taking off material around the base. Because we're going to round all this, so it doesn't matter if we remove quite a bit of material straight away. Be brave. And then once we start getting chip out, we want to start rounding it down. So now we've got there, see the shape we've got here, it comes up. So that's what it looks like with both sides cut out. Now we're going to take our gouge. You can also do this with a knife as well, but I just want to show you a little bit of how you can use gouges in your carvings. And we're just going to scoop around. We're not going to get too carried away. Make sure to leave this high spot untouched for now. And these gouge lines can actually be quite cool to leave into the carving because they kind of look a little bit like feathers and plumage. We're going to be leaving this carving really simple. It's not going to be a detailed bird. These 2 points are where the back angle of our bird starts to change and head towards the neck, which is in here, and then it goes towards the head. So using our gouge, I'm going to scoop in here, and here, and then we're going to start removing all these high spots on the sides. Notice when you get to this part of the neck of the bird, you have to start coming down just a little bit because the wood grain will be curving in. You can kind of get away with it a little bit on the back, but on the front of the bird you're going to need to do cuts into the body rather than out of the body, otherwise you're going to tear out the top of the face. So now we're going to get to the face and the head, so we're going to make sure to leave this beak flat. So what I like to do is take my V-gouge and just run a couple of cuts in here just to establish that the beak is a separate thing. So we're just running into the body and stopping. And we'll tidy that up with our knife in a minute. Same thing on the head as on the body. We're going to round off all these corners. We're going to make it nice and proportional and symmetrical. So I'm just working around these lines that I've marked out, putting a nice radius on it, and then bringing it up to the top of the head. Alright, so you notice now that we're working on the front of the face, I start off taking the corners off and then I'll start working the radius around and then bringing it down from this line that we've marked. The top of the head's easier because you don't have to deal with the beak. Just do some stop cuts in here around the beak. Make sure you define the difference between the body and the head at the front. Makes it look better. Alright, so now we've got a little round birdie. We just need to get the details sorted out. So those details are the beak and the wings. So they're pretty straightforward. The beak we've left flush, so all we've got to do is sort of round it out and bring it down to the rest of the body. I'm actually going to use a different knife for this one. This one's just a little bit narrow, so it's easier to get into those tighter spaces. So the dominant grain direction on the beak is pretty much vertical. So if we cut this way against it, we're actually going to tear it out. So we need to make sure that we cut down the beak. This is actually kind of difficult. What I like to do first is I like to come through and define the curve of the beak, because we don't want it sort of flat across the nose. It looks kind of silly. Just using the tip of the knife. Now we're just going to come from the base and we're just going to run it along the tip. I'm going to have to do little stop cuts in at the end just to get it defined out. Alright, so that's getting there on that side, but we'll just even it up on this side first. Just making sure that beak is actually symmetrical. So make sure that your beak transitions between the head and the body, because that'll make it look nice in 3D and it'll make it look nice and cute as well. I'm going to work on the wings now. So we're just going to mark these in. These are just nice little semicircles starting at the center point at the net and going down to just about imperial. I grew up in New Zealand, so we're used to the metric system. Let's say a 1/4 inch. You can tell me if that's a 1/4 inch or not in the comments. And we're just going to do a nice little semicircle. You can take this off the templates as well. I'm just eyeballing it. The easiest way to cut this in is with our V-tool. We're going to start from the center, because if we pushed up from here we'd get tear out because of the shape of the curve. And we're just going to push it along here and into that chin line. Probably going to do about 2 passes just to define the wing. And then we're going to flip over, and then we're going to go towards the base. Don't try and come from the base up, because you'll tear the wood out. So what we're going to do is we want to remove this V-notch and make this wing stand out. So we're just going to come in and we're just going to slowly bring this into the radius of the body. Smooth out that curve. So now I'm just going to smooth out my belly a little bit more, because those wings are standing out nice and proud. Smooth this exit point out a little bit too. So now that we've got all the major features of this bird defined, what have we got left? Just the eyes, eh? I've just reinstated the center line through the middle and put a little center line through the eyes, and then I've just drawn in little circles. This is how I like to do my eyes. I just put little cute circles and then I carve them in with a little score line with a knife, and then I paint them in. Alright, so all you do is you just come around your pencil line with your knife and just poke it in and just slowly work your way around. Be very slow, because if you slip at this point, it's going to be very hard to recover. Once you put those eyes in, just make sure to smooth off the eye areas and then bring it back up to the top of the head. And once you've done everything, just look around and see if there's anything that you could smooth off before you move into finishing. We're going to have a little bit of a scene change, and I'm going to finish this guy back off at home because I didn't bring any of my paints with me. We're going to go through some painting and finishing now. Just really basic stuff. With a lot of these carvings, I only really like to paint the eyes, so that's all we're going to do today. Off screen, I've sanded this guy all the way up to 400. So I've gone from 100, 180, 240, up to 400. I've also hit that with a coat of shellac in between the coats of 240 to 400. That helps stiffen the grain and helps you actually cut down those wood fibers rather than just pressing them down when you're using the higher grits. What we have now is we have a nice smooth little round birdie. When you're sanding, make sure to fold up your paper to get into these cracks. Don't skip over any grits, and using the shellac really does help. So for this little guy today, you can paint him however you like. How I'm going to do it is I'm going to paint the eyes black, and I'm going to do a white dot and a little blue highlight at the bottom of the eye. And the eyes are all I'm going to paint. You could paint this whole bird if you wanted to. In fact, I would love to see how you guys paint this guy out. He's really yours to do whatever you want with. Paints, I just use acrylics, and I thin them quite a bit with water. I probably go about maybe a 1 to 5 paint to water. The point of doing thin coats is so you don't get an uneven distribution of paint on your basswood. Basswood being quite soft can absorb the paint in different ways depending on the orientation of the wood grain. The cuts that I have around the eyes here act as a little bit of a dam to stop the thin coat of paint from flowing and seeping into the wood. So I've got 3 total coats of the black on there. Now that it's dried completely, I'm going to move on to putting a little blue highlight on the bottom. Now we're just going to very, very gently put the little white dot on. And that's all I'm going to paint. We're going to come back tomorrow after the paint has dried nicely, and I'm going to put some finish on them. In the interest of making finishing this peach super approachable for anyone, I'm going to be using a clear satin polyurethane spray. You can find this at your local hardware store really easily. You can probably pick up a can for about 10 bucks. So I'm doing this the next day after everything's dried out with the paint. I tried to make finishing this piece really accessible for people who don't have access to a lot of stuff right now during the quarantine. Try spraying your finish outside if possible, otherwise in a garage or some space that you can ventilate pretty easily. Basically, that's all there is to this simple little bird. He's a cute little fat boy. I'd love to see what you guys can do with him. If you're feeling up to it, add a lot more detail and paint him to your heart's content. To be honest, I kind of wish that I painted the beak. I'm always a fan of leaving the wood bare where I can. I'm still really happy with them. I'd love to see how you guys go on this project. Tag me on Instagram as well. Comment down below and let me know if this helped you out. Hit this with a like if you're enjoying this content, and subscribe for more videos coming up soon. Thanks for following along with this one, guys, and see you in the next one.